Hello everyone, very warm welcome to you all. Again, my name is Dr. Anandarup Goswami. I'm from Division of Chemistry, Department of Sciences and Humanities. So as you know, till now, as far as our unit is concerned, so we started discussing from the beginning and then we slowly moved down, right? So we started, in fact, in the last class, if you remember, so we started discussing about the synthesis of nanomaterials. So today what we are going to do, we are going to finish up the synthesis part, and if time permits, we will go to the application part. Okay, so let's see what we have learned as far as the synthesis of nanomaterials are concerned. Okay, so we have learned that there are two major types of synthesis. One is called top down, one is called bottom up. Top down means you are actually breaking down a bigger bulk to a small nanomaterial, right? That's called top down. So bigger bulk to small nanomaterial. Whereas in the bottom up, you are starting at the atomic level, you are starting with a precursor at the atomic or molecular level, and you are slowly building them up at the nanoscale, right? So, and we have discussed also certain advantages, disadvantages of top down and bottom up approaches also, and I've given you some examples, right? As far as the examples of top down is concerned, I have discussed extensively about mechanical ball milling, right? That we have already discussed in our last session, right? So this is what we have discussed earlier. So what we have learned from there, we have learned that if you have big balls in a particular container, and if you put them in that container along with the bulk nanomaterial, then once you start rotating them, they will collide with each other, and eventually they will actually make the nanomaterials from the bulk. This is what we have learned till now, right? And we have also mentioned some advantages and disadvantages of this particular process. So let's start with the next part. What is the next part? Our next part is essentially one example from bottom up approach, which is called sol gel. So this is a very unique approach and it's extensively used. In fact, we use the same procedure in our lab also if we have to make nanomaterials. So if you are interested, please come visit our lab and we will be able to show you how to make this kind of nanomaterial using this particular procedure. Okay. So now as far as the topic is concerned, you already know this is a bottom up approach. That means you are building from the precursor level to the nanomaterial level, right? This is first thing that you need to understand this. This is the main difference from top down approach. Okay, so how it can be defined? So it is defined as one of the well established synthetic approach to prepare novel metal oxide nanoparticles or as well as mixed oxide nanocomposites. So now, as the name suggests, we need to understand what do you mean by sol gel. We need to understand what do you mean by sol gel. What is sol? What is gel? So we need to define them first. So a sol is a colloidal suspension of particles in a liquid. So your entire medium is actually liquid, where you have very small at the nanoscale, 1 to 100 nanometer. You are making that kind of suspension. That is very, very important. What about gel? Gel is the next part. Once you make the colloidal suspension, then there is a possibility that they can aggregate. Once they start aggregating, they may tend to form this gel. A gel is a semi-rigid solid in which the solvent is contained in a framework of material that is either colloidal or polymeric. So that means you have very tiny particles in the sol form, right? Once you have that, depending on the reaction conditions, there is a possibility that these tiny particles can aggregate among each other, but still there will be space for your liquid. This particular form is called gel, and the process by which you can make gel from a sol is called gelation. Okay. This is really important topic to discuss, because depending on your reaction condition, the structure changes, as well as depending on the purification procedure, you will end up having very different materials. Okay, so this is the major part. That means as far as the sol gel is concerned, we understood two things. One is that what is sol, one is what is gel. Now some way or the other, from your precursor to nanomaterial, you have to incorporate these terms and you need to understand what is going on. That's our goal. Okay, so we'll try to understand that. So as far as the sol gel method is concerned, it undergoes from the precursor, as I said, from precursor to the nanomaterial level via sol and gel. That's how the entire process goes. So once you start having this kind of concept, then you can actually, there's a possibility that you can break them down into different steps. In fact, each steps contribute to some extent to the overall formation of nanomaterial. So now what are these steps? Majorly the steps are hydrolysis, condensation and drying. So these are the three major steps that are going on once you have a sol gel process in place. Okay, so now how, again, your goal is to get metal oxide, at least in this case. Okay, because why you have chosen metal oxide? Because this is more prevalent and this is relatively easier for us to understand in terms of reaction also. We will see that in a second. The formation of metal oxide involves different consecutive steps. As I have told you, initially the corresponding metal precursor. Now we have actually introduced another term. What is it? Metal precursor. So that's your starting material in this case. Sol is not your starting material. From metal precursor you are actually forming sol, and from that sol you are actually forming gel. Undergoes rapid hydrolysis to produce metal hydroxide in solution. So this hydrolysis allows you to form metal hydroxide from the metal precursor, followed by immediate condensation, which leads to formation of three-dimensional gels. Now gels or sol, whatever you are forming, these are the steps that are important. So as far as the reaction is concerned, let's try to break this process down in terms of reactions, so that it will be easier for us to understand. Okay. Now once you form the gel, we will start actually looking into reactions in a moment. Afterward, obtained gel is subjected to the drying process and the resulting product is readily converted to xerogel or aerogel. So these are certain terms of gel which we will talk about in a second, okay, based on the mode of drying. Okay. So basically you have metal precursor that is first going to form sol. Sol is going to get converted to gel, and then that gel, depending on the drying procedure, will actually form xerogel or aerogel. Okay. So that's the whole idea behind the sol gel process. Now as I said, it will be easier for us to understand in terms of picture or in terms of reaction. Let's try in terms of reactions. Okay. So here what we have done, we have chosen silica precursor. So first step that we know, that if you have listened to the previous slide, first it is going to undergo hydrolysis. What do you mean by hydrolysis? Hydrolysis means essentially addition of water. Okay. So once you have this kind of compound, what is this? This is essentially R equals to, it could be CH3 or it could be pH or it could be something else. But this cannot be hydrogen. Okay, this is an ether linkage. If you have carbon, oxygen, carbon, we call it as ether. So instead of one carbon, you have one silicon, right? So this actually has a carbon moiety, carbon linkage. So once you have that, then what is going on? this is going to react with water. There may be some different types of reaction medium that you can use, and depending on whether it's acid or basic, depending on the mechanism changes, but the product remains the same. Okay. So here, if you want to look at it in one shot, you can clearly see that this is the one that is coming out. Once you come out, what you end up with? And your byproduct is ROH. So if this is, let's say, OCH3, if you have water, and if it undergoes hydrolysis, then you are going to form SiOH plus methanol. Similarly, if it has ethyl group here, it will form ethanol. So whatever groups we can have at this stage, depending on the reaction conditions, there is a possibility that you can hydrolyze them. Okay, that's the first step, that is the hydrolysis part. Now when I am talking about hydrolysis, I am always talking about the forward reaction. The backward reaction of this is called esterification. Okay, we are not going to discuss that in this particular context, though it is important, but not at this context. What happens next? Next, this is the same molecule here. Okay, once you have the hydrolysis, that hydrolysis and another hydrolyzed molecule which is here. So once you have these two molecules, then there is a possibility that this water will come out. Okay, so once this water, because OH will come out from there, H will come out from here. So essentially this is going to be here, and what you will end up with? You will end up with SiO and then this Si. You have to think just taking it backwards, so you will end up with the SiO-Si linkage. So what is your byproduct? Your byproduct is water. Once you have water as byproduct, in this context you can call it as a condensation reaction. So first hydrolysis will give you this SiOH linkage. Now you can have OH here also, or sorry, OR here also, and in that case you can have, you will end up with hydrolysis of 4 OR linkages, right? So depending on how you are forming, depending on what is the degree of hydrolysis, you will end up having different structure. But the thing is, first, once you have hydrolysis, later you are going to have water condensation to give you SiO-Si linkage. Now these linkages are very important, they are very robust, and once it starts happening, this is, I am assuming that it is happening with both molecules when they are same. But interesting, look at this structure. You got this structure as well as this structure. Now if given a chance, these two can also work. So this structure is this one, and this is this structure. Once you have that, again there is a possibility, like the way that we have removed ROH, you can remove ROH like that here also. And you will end up having the same product, same linkage, SiO-Si linkage, but your byproduct is going to be ROH. Instead of water when reaction between two hydroxyl group is going to give you water as a byproduct, when reaction between one hydroxyl and one alkoxy group is going to give you as alcohol as a byproduct. So now what happens in this particular case, this is the basic reaction for entire sol-gel process in this particular context. Now look at this, this is happening at the one OH center and you are forming one SiO-Si linkage. Now if there is a possibility to form linkages here, then this one is going to also grow on this side. This one is also going to go on this side. This, like that, it will be a three-dimensional network kind of thing. Okay. Once you have that, then you will actually, once it reaches to a level of a colloidal dispersion, you are going to form a sol. Understand? So once these reactions will keep happening, eventually reach a particular size which is of the dimension between 1 to 100 nanometer, which will make a colloidal dispersion, that then and only then you can call the entire solution as sol. So this is again, this is what is going on, but this is what I wanted to tell you, that once, instead of, previously I showed you one example here with only one OR group. Now I have taken one where you have 4 OR group. So eventually all this is going to be hydrolyzed. Right? Eventually you will actually plus 4 molecules of water is going to react and it will release 4 molecules of ROH. Okay? Plus means you are adding water, minus means you are taking 4 alcohol molecule out. Once you have that, then this is the step where you are forming MOM. Just like think of this as Si. Then you will see from Si2 you are going to form SiOH, and from that you are going to form SiO-Si linkages. And this step is, as we have discussed, is called condensation. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So from metal alkoxide, you are forming metal hydroxide. From metal hydroxides, you are going to form a condensation product. If that is at the colloidal dispersion level, you can call it as sol. Okay, so now eventually what is going to happen? Just take any one example. So this is how this particular linkage, let's say this is M1 and you have another one. So these water molecules will come out. So let's call this as M2. So this is your M1, this is your M2. So once this comes out, then you are going to form MOM2. So this bond is formed because of this oxygen is essentially this oxygen. So then what happens to the other linkages? That's the interesting part. So now after formation of this, you can still have OH here. You can still have OH there on this side because you have only formed this bond. Once you have that, then this OH is going to react with one molecule of this again. This or this one molecule of this. Irrespective of that, we have now discussed the chemistry behind it. So you know eventually it is going to form a three-dimensional network structure. Okay, it will keep on going depending on the reaction conditions, depending on the availability of the precursor, depending on the catalyst you are using. Okay, eventually once you have that, eventually you are going to get a relatively bigger particle which are still at the colloidal level, but eventually there is a possibility that these particles are going to aggregate among each other. And once it forms that kind of structure, that kind of network structure, we'll call them as gel. Okay. So now then, what's next? Why it is so important? So something interesting that can be performed if you know the chemistry behind it for the sol gel. So you have a sol alkoxide solution, hydrolysis, polymerization or condensation, you will get a sol. Sol means what? Sol means individual particles which are at the nanoscale colloidal dispersion. So now once they start gelling with each other, then you are going to get a gel. What is happening here? These particles are talking to each other, they are coming close, and there again the same reactions are happening. In this particular case, the reaction that is happening are again condensation. Again water molecule is coming out. But while doing that, what is happening? From individual particle you are forming a structure that looks like this. So you call it as gel. Now with gel, where you have still solvent particles around it, because that's the reason why these gels are very fluffy, okay, because you have solvent there. Now, and they have relatively high surface area. Now there are two things that you can do, okay. So let's say this one you evaporate. So once you evaporate, what is going to give you? It's going to give you a very dense structure, because you are taking these solvents out. So it's going to give you a very dense structure, which if you heat it further, it's going to give you a dense ceramic. Okay, so this is again, you are taking a silica as a model example, it's going to give you a ceramic structure. Now this is the evaporation, but that means you are removing the solvent out. But let's say while taking solvent out, you find a procedure where you are not collapsing this structure. Once you take the solvent out, what is happening? In general, these structures will collapse. Now let's say you found a procedure by which you are taking the solvents out, but these structures are not collapsing. So you have intact structure, intact gel structure. Inside there may be air or there may be something else, but your solvent is not there anymore. So that particular type of things is called aerogel. You can extract the solvent out, you can take the solvent out. Normally this is done via supercritical CO2 based techniques. Okay, so you require very special, very slow removal of solvent in order to make this structure. If you heat it too much, it will eventually form this. You will lose this kind of structure. Okay. So what's next? Then if you completely take this out, and then if you heat it further, you will end up with either dense ceramic or this kind of structure. So that structure is called xerogel. So these can be called as xerogel, where essentially you have aerogel, but you are converting aerogel to a relatively more dense structure by evaporation. Okay, so you can convert this to this by evaporation. This is very important because here you look, it's a fluffy material. You can have a aerogel of, this is very fluffy. So it's like it contains huge surface area. There are a lot of things which require high surface area, like gas absorption. That can be, this kind of material can be used for those kind of systems. Right? Now let's say you have a sol and you are coating it on a film, on a substrate. In this case, in this particular type of system, we call this plate as a substrate. You're coating this onto this, and then if you are heating it up, what is going to happen? This particular thing is similar to this, and this is similar to this one. You're just coating a dense film. Okay? So you had sol, you can make gel and then make dense ceramic, or you can coat this on a film, on a surface, so that this gel formation will happen at this stage. And eventually from gel formation to eventually you are going to evaporate the solvent, so you will have a zero gel film. So this zero gel film is going to give you a dense film at the end. Now if you have this one in your solution, by some way or the other you have a very high centrifuge, very strong centrifuging power, or some other method, you can separate it. Once you separate it, rather precipitating it, you are going to get an uniform particle, because you have just removed the solvent from here, and this particle didn't have chance to get to gel. So that's why you will have individual particle. That is also very much important in some applications. Now what do you do again? This is a film that we have. This is a dense ceramic we have formed. You can take this and you put it on a spinning. What do you mean by spinning in this particular case? You have a substrate, you just put a drop of this sol and rotate it at very high speed. Once you rotate it, the sol is going to get smeared on the surface uniformly. You will get a very low thickness of that. Once it is becoming like that, then you put it in a furnace. What does furnace do? It will heat up. So under that heating condition, what is going to happen? Obviously you know, heating condition is going to happen evaporation, solvent evaporation, to give you a dense structure. Now that dense structure could be different, because the initial amount of salt that you have taken and the way you have distributed it on the surface is very different than any of the other one we have talked about. So in that case, from that dense structure you are going to form ceramic fibers. So there are different ways of making things from just one sol. Okay, silica, it's more common, but it doesn't have to be silica. You can use other metal precursors also. For example, titania, TiO2 is very important material for photocatalytic generation of hydrogen or water splitting. Nowadays they can also be synthesized using sol gel technique. Okay, zirconia, ZrO2. So what are the material that you can make? We can make silica, we can make titania, you can make zirconia. You can also make other metal oxide like iron oxide, so on and so forth. But remember, this is a procedure by which you can make every one of them at the nanoscale. That is very important. If you don't understand that part, then it's not, because normal silica you can find in sand, but those are not at the nanoscale. This is the procedure by which you can make them at the nanoscale. Okay. So I hope it is clear now what sol gel means. So what are the advantages of sol gel? As the process is based on chemical reaction in liquid phase, because your hydrolysis, condensation, all these reactions are happening at liquid phase. It is very simple technique. It's very easy to perform these reactions. Okay. It is also cost effective, because most of the precursors are not that expensive. If you remember ball milling case, I told you that it's not always cost effective, because you need a ball milling machine, and I have already told you that once one batch is done, it is a bit tricky to clean that machine. Okay, so that that kind of problem is not going to be there in case of sol gel. Okay, very simple exercises are required. As the deposition is done in liquid phase, the process is versatile enough to produce a large forms of nanomaterials. I have given you some example from dense ceramic to film to other types of nanomaterial, but all those things can be done by tuning a little bit of the reaction conditions and the approaches, right? But the basic chemistry remains same. They are all sol gel based techniques. Due to the liquid phase deposition, large and complex shaped substrate can also be coated by this process. That was a bit tricky when we are doing ball milling. There are other processes by which you can do, there are other deposition technique I told that day in my previous class, where you can deposit a certain nanomaterial on a surface, but that has some limitations. During sol gel, it doesn't have any limitations because it's essentially is nothing. Reaction is happening on the surface and you already know about the chemical reaction. Everything is at the liquid phase. Whatever surface coating you want, you make a sol of that one. If the precursors are available to make a sol, you make a sol of that one, you put your substrate into it, take it out, dry it, heat it up, you are going to get that substrate coating for sure. It's relatively easy in that case. Possibility of high purity of starting material can also be achieved with relatively easier control over the doping level. So, because it is happening, all the reactions are happening at the molecular scale, so you can to some extent predict the impurities that are going to be present. Okay, in that case you can actually adapt some approaches where almost there will be no impurities because you already know what are going to be the byproduct and other things. So it is not always that tricky to find out what are the impurities and how to get rid of them. Okay, so these are the advantages. What about the disadvantages? The process is not very clean because when you talk about clean method, that means we don't want any waste. But as you know here, we have actually you are going to generate water, alcohol and all the other things depending on the precursor that you are using, and they will all have some sort of hazardous component to it. They may have, not always, but they may have. So in those contexts, it actually often requires further purification. So that's one of the problem. As the process involves chemical reaction between several ingredients in solution, different types. One is your precursor, you are using precursor, then you are hydrolyzing them to form hydrolyzed product. Now this hydrolyzed product is going to actually react with another hydrolyzed product to give you one reaction, one condensation product, or this hydrolyzed product is going to react with the starting material to give another type of condensation product. So irrespective of that, it contains undesired atoms. Though, as I said, they are easy to identify what could be the undesired product, but they are still there. That's why they are not always the cleanest method. Okay. So, and because it contains some undesired atom molecules in the required material, which deteriorates the electrical as well as the optical properties of the final product. So that's why it's not always obviously you have to have some application in mind, and depending on that application only you chose your synthetic method. Okay, it's not like any synthetic method can lead you to that kind of structure which will be useful for all the application. It's not going to be like that. So therefore this technique is not compatible with modern solid substrate device fabrication. For in terms of device fabrication, it is not always recommended because device fabrication needs precise control at the nanoscale. In this case, it's a bit tricky to control like that. Okay, it is a very useful method. It's easy to operate. Anyone can synthesize this kind of material, but at the same time, if you really want precise control over a particular process, this is probably not going to be the best method. So at this stage, we have discussed about ball milling process, we have discussed about soil gel process, right? So hopefully you understood the approach that we have taken to discuss this kind of process. For ball milling, it's a top-down one. For soil gel, it's a bottom-up one. Okay. So with that, I am going to stop at this point. In the next session, I will finish up the applications part, where I don't need to speak a lot about the applications because that is not exclusively included in your syllabus at this moment, but you will at least get to know a little bit about that. So that you can have some idea. Especially I will be discussing a little bit about the contributions from India in that context. Once again, thank you everyone.